Hello, it's me, Paul from Pandyman, and I want to discuss today the design aspects and how I developed fret level, tube strike, and fret level emergency response. So, I wanted to sort of say why I had this rationale. Well, I I've been talking to prospective freelancers, and we have been talking, and they've always made this statement. I thought fret level was going to be offensive, and it got me thinking. And they usually ask a question around that statement, but it did get me thinking. If they're thinking this, maybe you're thinking this, and I don't want you thinking that. It's not an offensive game. Not to say that it couldn't be used in an offensive way. It could be. It is not designed for that purpose. It is not designed to be used in that way. But if you so wish to use it in that way, I'm not going to be able to stop you, unfortunately. But how I designed, so we'll start back in 2019. I was working in London, catching the trains, 2 hours a day, as I lived in Bury St Edmunds, and would basically travel to London every day, 2 hours there, back. It was the other side of London as well. Great fun. And I'd see the police. They were standing around, usually armed. We don't have many armed police in the UK, but in that kind of environment, they have to kind of be armed. So I saw these people. I watched tube stations. I had to occasionally wait for trains on the London Underground. It's one of those places that you sometimes just have to wait. And so for me, it was very important for me to try and sort of learn stuff. At the same time, I was thinking quite heavily about sort of games that I wanted to design and develop, and what I wanted to do with that. And I remember talking to a designer, the designer for the company I was working for, James Sehan. And I was picking his brain one evening, and I was like, he was, in for sort of training us at some point. And he said about hidden information. And that got me thinking, how could I put hidden information into a game? Now he'd given some examples. It was really, really interesting. And it came to me that people, you can't tell by the skin, by how they're looking, maybe by their body language, but not really how they're sort of portraying themselves. Currently I'm wearing an England shirt. I'm not a massive football fan, but I have a shirt. And so that doesn't mean that I'm going to start shining lasers in football players' eyes, as evidenced by the semi-final. Now, that's sort of important, that we look at sort of behaviours. So I sort of came down to antagonist, profile, and public. So a member of the public, we're all members of public. You wouldn't be able to tell generally if I was going to do something, because I wasn't planning on it. I'm not a belligerent. And then there's profiles. Now, profiles, maybe you've been given a tip off. Ooh, got to look out for, bald man, glasses, slight beard, bit chunky. Maybe that's what they're looking out for. Maybe they're just looking out for body language. Maybe I'm walking very aggressively. But it's probably nothing. I'm probably not going to go on a murder rampage through a tube station. I'm not planning on that. Don't worry, this is not like a blog, like in a confession. So we then think, okay, and then there's at the time we were still calling them terrorists in Tube Strike. And that's because originally there was only really one mission. It was Tube Strike. It was a tube mission of basically a knife-wielding maniac on the tube, London Underground, if you're American. And so for me, that was important that we demonstrated, this is a person that wants to commit terror. That's all that terrorism is. You could be right-wing. You could have, let's be honest, a flat earther if they wanted to go insane and, decide that, oh no, my belief structure is that of someone who, I need to forcibly, cause terror to get people to agree with my belief structure. This flat earther could do it, in theory. It wouldn't really prove anything. Just make people laugh at them more, maybe. I'm not going to say yes or no to flat earth. I know, controversial. Everyone has their own opinion. It doesn't affect me, even if the science proves otherwise. So, going off a bit of a tangent there. So I looked very much at, from a member of the public point of view. So I did look at the police, and there's probably police officers out there who go, I'm not thinking about my dinner as I'm standing there with a MP5, standing there looking, disinterested into a crowd of people for potential danger. I'm just there for security. And that's fine. I agree with that. I'm sure they're not thinking about their dinner, but I like to imagine that they were, or maybe a holiday in Paris, or they were thinking about their bedtime story that they're going to read their daughter. Maybe they're thinking that, I need to make sure I book off the 22nd. I've got that party to go to. I need to make sure I book that day off. I'm sure they're not thinking that, but you never know. When you get, complacent, it does go into your mind. So for me, I wanted that kind of aspect of the game as well. But first off, I wanted to add that hidden information. And so I made a game, a very simple sort of mechanic that just, added in there. I did bore poor Mr. Seahan to death, and literally, I'm pretty sure he texts someone please save me from Paul, because he's just talking to me about hidden information. So eventually I went home for the day, and I carried on looking, and people watching is great. And I also wanted to design a game that highlighted what the police have to do. They have to do an awful lot. Often it's very much it doesn't really fit into the fire brigade, and it doesn't really fit into the ambulance service. So we don't really want to be deploying soldiers on the street. Who can we give this to? Yes, we'll give it to the cops. So they're overworked. with lots of responsibilities, and that doesn't necessarily, they've got a lot of different jobs to do. Protecting us civilians, us members of the public. And I wanted to demonstrate that, so I made a little scenario, play tested it a little bit. It was, I got the wife to start play testing with miniatures I already owned from other companies. And I went, you know what? Yeah, no, that's really good. Actually, I really enjoyed this, and she was like, yeah, no, I really enjoyed this too. So I made it a bit deeper, and I sort of created a system. Originally, I was going to write solo rules for a different company, a different rule book. Just unofficial solo rules. I was going to make scenarios and everything using their system without their permission. I wasn't going to get their permission. I was just going to do it and just give it away. And I sat there going, well, does all this work? And then I started going, I really want to play with this system idea I had, which was 2d6. Adding the advantage, disadvantage, adding different bits and bobs into it. And it sort of got a bit of way with itself, really. It's sort of really designed into something else. So I was like, well, I can't really use it for, this other rule system. It wouldn't work anymore. So I sort of let that go and focused on finishing off the rule system. Adding in those little quality of life pieces, like complacency. Just it has a bit of fun. It has that element of enjoyment. And so because of that, I was really lucky to then sort of, go, actually, this book is a potential product. How maybe I need to start thinking about, miniatures. And I was like, cool, I wonder how I could do that. So we're still back in 2019. I'm still, fiddling around. It's sort of get, I'm no longer working in London. I now work somewhere else. And I'm really thinking hard about this product. Okay. And I've gone, you know what, I could quickly put together the rules, playtest them, make Queen's Quest, put it out for free, and see how that goes. So I put some different bits in and I made a rounded game, quickly just playtested it. I didn't spend too much time on it. I already had the characters designed by the wonderful Daisy. And so I sort of went through it and put it out there, put it on Wargame Vault. Didn't think anything more of it, really. I was quite happy. And then I started getting pings on my phone. I'm like, what's this? And people were downloading. I was like, oh, okay. I think I have a real product. Like, I had no reviews, but I had a real product. I had something that people were willing to at least take for free. If they would take it for free, maybe they'd buy it. And I thought, well, they're not going to buy, just anything. They're probably going to want miniatures. So I started looking around the internet for good, unarmed police miniatures. And I couldn't really find any. Maybe I wasn't looking very hard. There has, people have said to me since, oh, what about these and what about that? And yeah, there is an element of that. There is some really good wargaming miniatures. But I was like, yeah, I don't really like those. They're not really representative of the police. So I wanted to make my own. So I started scouring the internet for potential, miniature designers, sculptors. And I was looking the traditional way. And yeah, so I was looking the traditional way, and found quotes. I got quotes back, and I was like, "Ooh, wee, I can't afford that." Still, I'm like, I can't do that. So eventually, I was like, you know what? It's fine. I kept, thinking, okay. So I was putting the book together, and I use Affinity Publisher because I refuse to pay monthly for stuff that I can pay once. And Affinity Publisher this is not sponsored in any way, but it is a wonderful product. So I was like, okay, so I'm using Affinity Publisher. I'm getting really good at it, and yeah, getting good at it is another statement. And so we were playtesting, and I was putting together the book. I was still using the word terrorist. Well, a big mistake, but it was fine. It was technically inclusive enough for what it originally was for. And I've come across like 3D sculptors, and the first one I wrote to actually was our wonderful sculptor that we use now. And I said, do you do commissions? If so, how much? I've been sort of, expecting a lot more. And he said, oh, it's this reasonable price. And I was like, perfect. So I then scoured the internet. I was like looking everywhere for something that would capture people's imagination. And I found the Sikh police with an MP5, I think it is. And so I'm looking at it going, actually, just 1 second. That's captured my imagination. It's probably going to capture other people's. I was like, can you make this guy? He was like, well, yeah, of course I can, for this reasonable price. He was like, it's going to take a couple of days. I was like, that's fine. And so I'm like, okay, I need to figure out how I'm going to print this, because I don't have a printer at the time. I'm getting really excited, and it sort of comes to me. I'm like, I know this guy down the road. He's got, I'll message him. So anyway, our wonderful sculptor has come back, and he looks amazing. I'm just in awe. I'm like, the whole time, I'm like a pig in poop. Quite frankly, I'm so excited, and I'm like running around showing everyone, like, oh, look at this, because I'm that excited. It's sort of my sort of dream is starting to become more real, and so I sort of looked at sort of what I can do next. So I've gone and printed a few times. I've gone to some other companies, as well as just, because the guy was like, dude, I don't want to be printing your stuff all the time. But he looks awesome. So I went to companies to see if there was like reasonable sort of printing costs, and no. So it's now 2020, and as we all know, what happens? COVID happens, and that sucks. It sucks big time. And I'm like, yay. And actually, it's quite good because at the time I get my bonus from work, and I pumped it into a 3D printer. I just got a really good quality one, because I've been learning from, once again, not an endorsement, I just love this guy, a YouTuber called The Craft Man. I will link to his channel. He is an amazing individual. He does all kinds of stuff, and it's been really educational for me, and I was really experimenting a lot with what he was doing and trying to learn from him. Absolutely amazing person. would definitely recommend subscribing to him if you've got any sort of want to craft. And so at that point, I bought a 3D printer and I printed my own miniatures. Yeah, I wasn't great at it. I've learned a lot since then, since March of 2020. But it's been a really exciting journey. And yeah, I don't really want to go on too long about this, as you know, so I'm going to make another video actually in a couple of seconds, but I won't release it just yet. And yeah, so that was kind of how it was going. It was really positive, and I was like, okay, I'd managed to get a stall for Salute earlier in December. I was actually a runner-up. So I was really excited. I was like, oh yeah, no, definitely, this is great news. And then COVID. I think that should be the name of this video. And then COVID. So yeah, so that's part one. Like and subscribe if you can, if you like it. If not, that's fine, I guess. And I will see you all next week.